Hey folks, this is Kelani. Patch 8.2 will be up on the PTR next week, so we'll finally be able to get our hands on the new content which should hopefully liven up the game just a little bit. One of the key features is the new overhauled Heart of Azeroth system. Azerite traits are still going to be a thing, but we won't ever have to regrind artifact power to unlock any extra traits after your heart reaches level 50. Artifact power and amulet levels after that will start contributing to this new progression path where you can gain powerful active abilities and some very potent passives. Let's break things down and have a look at exactly how you can obtain these new powers, preview 21 different essences that we know of so far, and have a chat about what we think about the system as a whole. This entire system revolves around a new type of item called essences. There's a lot of essences to choose from. You can have up to 3 at a time, and you get varying effects based on how you slot these essences into your new Heart of Azeroth artifact tree. Perhaps the most important detail that you're going to need to know is, where do these essences come from? It doesn't really matter what they do if we don't know how to obtain them in the first place, so let's start there. Essences come from every type of gameplay in World of Warcraft, but instead of them having a chance to just randomly drop while you're out world questing or PvPing or running Mythic Plus dungeons, each essence will have a defined source and way of obtaining it. That means one essence will specifically come from PvP, while another will specifically come from raiding. So if you want to collect every essence, you're going to have to take part in every type of gameplay available. That has some interesting and potentially frustrating implications which we'll discuss later on, but for the most part they shouldn't be bound to any random elements, so you should be able to work your way towards a very clearly defined goal while hunting for these new power-ups. Each essence also has different ranks that you can obtain. There's an uncommon version, a rare version, an epic version, and a legendary version. As you gain the higher rarities, the bonus effects that each essence provides will increase in power, but not just in terms of raw numbers. A new rarity might add new utility to your power, or give you another charge of the active ability itself. When you get to the legendary versions, they don't increase in power anymore, but the legendary version will give you a shiny new cosmetic variation for your specific ability which everyone can see. So if you unleash your legendary supernova, whatever essence you happen to have, someone paying attention will be able to see that. Holy cow, that was awesome. This guy or gal has a legendary version. So picking up the higher rarities is going to be very important, both for power and prestige, and they come from the same activities as the lower rarities, so you don't even have to guess where they come from or look any of it up. Your essence will also tell you where you can get the next rank up, with some exceptions being made for the legendary versions. We have a few example sources to work with. An uncommon essence will come from the Nazjatar raid on normal difficulty when you defeat the last boss. The rare version of that same essence will come from getting partway through the heroic difficulty of the raid, and the epic version will come from defeating the last boss on heroic difficulty. The legendary version will probably be tied to mythic progression or cutting edge. So as you get through harder content, you get better essences. A few other sources that we have information on right now include reputations. The uncommon essence comes from a rep vendor when you get to Honoured with that faction. The rare one is available at Revered, and the epic one at Exalted, with the legendary one coming from the faction's Paragon chest. This means that your overall participation and progression in every area of the game is going to directly reward you with better powers to slot into this new Heart of Azeroth system. Let's have a look at what some of these powers actually look like. We have quite a list here already. Keep in mind that this is from a Protection Paladin's point of view only, and it's not a complete list by any measure. The Focusing Iris Essence has a 1.5 minute cooldown, a 1.2 second cast time, and allows you to focus excess Azerite energy into the Heart of Azeroth, then expel that energy outwards, dealing fire damage to all enemies in front of you for 2.7 seconds. As you upgrade it, it can be used while moving. The minor power increases your haste every 2 seconds, and that stacks up to 10 times. While at 10 stacks, you have a chance to deal some extra damage to your current target. By the way, a lot of these essences sound very powerful, and are apparently designed that way. So if something sounds brokenly good, it might not actually change. That might actually be there in the live game. Blood of the Enemy has a 1.5 minute cooldown and is instant cast. The Heart of Azeroth erupts violently, dealing physical damage to enemies within 12 yards, and you gain 25% crit chance against those targets for 15 seconds, and you gain 35% increased crit damage for 15 seconds. The minor power makes your crit strikes grant a stack of blood of the enemy, and when you reach 25 stacks you gain 1000 haste for 12 seconds. Each stack increases your crit and it has a chance to not consume all of your stacks when it triggers. That sounds amazing for a demon hunter, but let's keep going. Purification Protocol has a 1 minute cooldown, it's instant cast, and it allows you to call down a purifying blast at the target location, dealing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards, every 1 second for 6 seconds. It also has a chance to immediately kill any target outright, it can stun aberration type enemies for 8 seconds, and if you kill something with it, your damage is increased by 10% for 8 seconds. The minor power gives your attacks a chance to deal extra fire damage and to heal you every 2 seconds for 8 seconds, and it does extra damage against aberrations. Some nice flavour in that one, and I can imagine that's going to be great for AoE farming mobs. Condensed Life Force has a 5 minute cooldown, it's instant cast and allows you to summon a Guardian of Azeroth for 30 seconds. The minor power gives your attacks a chance to impale your target with an Azerite spike, dealing physical damage. Note that this essence is the uncommon quality, so expect a lot more added on to this one as you upgrade the rarity. Unbound Force has a 1 minute cooldown, it's instant cast and throws a shard of Azerite at your target, dealing fire damage every 1 second for 10 seconds, and the damage is increased by 300% if it crits. The minor power gives you stacks of Reckless Force every time you crit, up to 5 stacks, and every 10 seconds you bombard your target with Azerite energy for every stack you have. Again, this one is uncommon, so this is the very base level of this essence, and you'll upgrade it later. That's all the pure DPS ones we have to look at so far. Let's move on to some healing essences. Artifice of Time has a 4 minute cooldown, it's instant cast and creates a time vortex around a target that absorbs 500,000 damage and 500,000 healing for 6 seconds, and then dishes out everything that was absorbed over the next 10 seconds, and the damage gets reduced by 20%. The minor power gives your heals a very high chance to grant haste and speed to your target for 6 seconds. That's a huge absorb shield for sure. That's crazy. Lifebinder's Invocation has a 3 minute cooldown, a 2.2 second cast time, and plants 40 seeds of ENR divided amongst all of your allies within 30 yards. Any seeds that aren't used reduce the cooldown of the ability. The minor power gives your heals a chance to plant those very same seeds, and each seed heals over time and will provide a burst of healing if the target takes damage. It's kind of like Prayer of Mending, but constant and for everyone. The Ever-Rising Tide has a 30-second cooldown, it's instant cast and gives you a surge of healing. Every spell you cast increases your healing by 4% for 10 seconds and grants 10% haste, but your mana regen is stopped, so there's a little risk-reward thing for you. The minor power gives your heals a chance to grant intellect or mana, and the chance to gain mana increases as your mana depletes. Vitality Conduit has a 1 minute cooldown, it's instant cast and allows you to redirect health from one player to another. The minor power gives your heals a chance to create a burst of healing around your target that heals up to 5 allies within 12 yards. The Well of Existence has a 15-second cooldown, the shortest one so far, and is instant cast. Using it will release all healing stored in the well to heal an ally. 20% of all your overhealing is stored in the well, and when you heal an ally below 50%, the well will expend some of its energy to heal them a bit more. Over on the tank side of things, we have the Aegis of the Deep. This has a 1.5 minute cooldown, it's instant cast, and using it will reduce the damage you take from each attack for the next 10 seconds, and you'll also get a little heal whenever you're taking damage during that time. The minor power gives you versatility for each enemy within 10 yards, up to 565 versatility, and you heal every 4 seconds for each stack of the Aegis on you, and when you dip below 35% health, the versatility is doubled. That's pretty insane for Mythic Plus or anything with a lot of trash. Burning Embrace has a 2 minute cooldown, it's instant cast and allows you to sacrifice 10% of your max health to deal fire damage to all nearby enemies, equal to the amount of health you sacrificed, and then heal for 10% of your max health for each enemy you hit, up to a max of 50% of your max health. That just sounds bonkers. The minor power increases your max health every 4 seconds, stacking up to 15 times, and that effect is lost if you dip below 35% health. So the passive increases the damage of the ability itself too. That's That's a pretty crazy one. Engine of Ceaseless Progress has a 2-minute cooldown, it's instant cast and creates an energy field at your current location for 10 seconds. While standing in this area, you gain stacks of haste, mastery and crit. You also take 10% reduced damage, and when you activate your major power, all of your stacks are increased by 100%. The minor power grants you a stack of haste, mastery or crit every 2 seconds, and when you reach 10 stacks of one stat, the effect is doubled for 8 seconds, and then your stacks reset. You also have a chance to generate extra stacks or gain a stack of each stat at the same time. Wow. Essence of Infinity gives you a free life by preventing your next death, resetting you to 10% of your max health and reducing the damage you take by 85% for 10 seconds or until you're healed above 70% health. That's got an internal cooldown of 7.5 minutes, so a pretty long cooldown that one. The minor power gives you 466 versatility unless you proc the major power, in which case you only gain 50% of the versatility for the 7.5 minute cooldown. Hardened Obsidian Essence has a 45-second cooldown, it's instant cast and gives you an extra cooldown, 40% damage reduction for 2 seconds, then 20% for the next 2 seconds after that. The minor power grants you a large armor bonus if you fall below 35% health, but it has an internal cooldown of 2 minutes. And then we also have some more general essences which could probably be used by anyone. Memory of Lucid Dreams has a 3-minute cooldown, is instant cast and increases your mana regen by 100% and your leech by 900 for 10 seconds. It also reduces the cooldown of one of your key abilities. Our example is Shield of the Righteous for paladin tanks. The minor power gives your spells and abilities a chance to refund 50% of the mana spent on them and heal you for about 10k. Whenever you have refunded mana, you also gain some versatility. Null Dynamo has a 2.3-minute cooldown, it's instant cast and grants you a huge magic absorption shield for 10 seconds and immediately cleanses all debuffs on you. The minor power creates a smaller magic absorb every 15 seconds, and when the shield expires it deals damage equal to the absorb amount divided amongst nearby players. Sphere of Suppression has a 45-second cooldown, it's instant cast and unleashes a pulse of energy, reducing movement speed of all allies within 15 yards by 70% and reducing the damage done to you by 10% for 8 seconds. If you hit an enemy, your movement speed is also increased by 50% for 8 seconds. The minor power causes any melee attacks on you to slow the attacker's attack speed, and you gain haste and increased attack speed for 7 seconds. That one could be pretty useful for PvP, potentially. The Crucible of Flame has a 30-second cooldown and blasts your target with a concentrated flame, dealing fire damage to an enemy or healing an ally, and you gain the Ancient Flame buff. Every time you cast Concentrated Flame, the damage or healing value is doubled up to 2 times and then it resets. That also has 2 charges on the max rank. The minor power gives your spells and abilities a chance to grant you Ancient Flame for 10 seconds, increasing your crit and leech and causing your damaging healing spells to engulf their target in Cleansing Flame, for an additional 10% of the damage or healing you did with the spell. That one sounds fairly powerful and provides you with a low cooldown ability to push quite often. Vision of Perfection gives your spells and abilities a chance to activate one of your major cooldowns like Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. When this activates, your cooldown is reduced passively. The minor power reduces the cooldown of your major cooldown ability and increases your versatility, and when you activate your cooldown you heal for 5% of your max health. And the last one we have to look at is Speaker's Boon. This one has a 2-minute cooldown, it's instant cast and allows you to summon 3 Azerite shards around you. The minor power will also periodically summon these very same shards, and the shard will grant you primary stat if you stand near them. So, a lot of abilities to process there, some with quite long cooldowns, some with very short cooldowns which you can push quite often, and then we have some completely passive effects which trigger under certain circumstances. A lot of variety for sure, which should hopefully help spice things up a little bit when you swap around characters or specs, but that's going to come down to balance for the most part, and I guess which ones are easiest to obtain the higher ranks of. But what's all this major and minor stuff about? Do we get all of those effects we just talked about? Well, not quite. As I touched on earlier, you can use 3 of these essences at any given time, but you don't gain all of the benefits of all 3 essences. You have 1 major and 2 minor points in your progression tree. If you put an essence into the major slot, you'll gain both the major and the minor powers. If you put an essence into the minor slots, you will only gain the minor powers. So in total you will have access to 1 major or active ability and 3 minor or passive abilities. That might not sound like a lot of choice, but I think it's going to be quite a bit of fun playing around with the different combinations to figure out what works well and what increases the amount of fun you can have with a variety of classes and specs. Different stat priorities will influence which essences you want to hunt down and rank up, so I'm hoping we can get some decent variety in the system and not have everyone running around with the exact same combination because they didn't balance these things properly. I think that's going to be one of the largest issues this system faces, simply because everyone has access to the same stuff. It's not spec or even class specific for the most part, which is something that has been sorely missed since we left Legion. We lost set bonuses, legendary effects and artifacts which all directly influenced our individual specs, and we traded that for very general game-wide bonuses which are always going to be a bit more bland because they don't interact with your rotation at a basic level. You can swap between essences pretty freely, by the way. It's the same rule set as swapping talents, so either be in a rested area or use a tome. That's a lot better than having something similar to the Azerite trait swap vendor at any rate. No silly respec costs for this new system. But one last thing I wanted to touch on is how you actually progress and unlock these new nodes in the Heart of Azeroth progression system. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but this system will be tied into the artifact power grind for any level above 50 on your Heart of Azeroth amulet. So this means two things. The first is that you need to be at level 50 on your heart for any of this to matter, so be sure to hit that mark before patch 8.2 goes live, otherwise you're going to get left behind a little bit. The other thing is that the artifact power grind isn't going anywhere. We knew it was going to be tied to this new progression system in one way or another, so it's not all too surprising, but this new system is tacked on top of our current progression. The major point is unlocked almost immediately, thankfully. The first minor point will unlock at heart level 55, and the second minor slot will unlock at heart level 65, so there's still quite a ways to go in the Heart of Azeroth, and I believe the new cap will be up at level 70, so we might not get that second minor bonus for quite a while. In between those levels we will get filler nodes with passive bonuses too, so if you're hoping the artifact power grind would be going away, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. So what do we think? I see a few issues with the system as a whole, the first major one being balance and numbers tuning. Simply put, it's going to suck all of the fun out of the system if one or two essences are significantly ahead of the rest in terms of damage or healing. World of Warcraft is a numbers game when you get into the nitty gritty of it, and everyone will chase the highest numbers, so I hope they have enough variety here and good enough balancing to make sure that at the very least, different classes want different essences. The other major problem that I foresee people complaining about is the fact that all of these essences come from all over the game. One is from PvP, one is from raiding, one is from dungeons, one is from reputations. You get the idea. If the best essence for your class or spec comes from PvP, but you don't like to PvP, that's going to feel like you're being pressured into playing the game in a way you don't want or like. That never feels all too great, but we'll have to see how things pan out in that regard. Personally, I'm more excited for a reason to get into different types of content and spend more time playing around with the stuff I usually ignore, as long as it's not Island Expeditions or Warfronts. If they put an essence in Warfronts, that's going to be hilarious, and I'll go get it anyway, but I'll probably grumble a bit along the way. I love the fact that there's various ranks of the essences that come from harder versions of game types. Heroic raiding gives you an upgrade over normal raiding. Mythic raiding might be the key to that super shiny visual upgrade in the legendary essence. You're rewarded for getting higher levels of reputation, or going higher up in the arena ladder, or taking on the new heroic warfronts. Having a good sense of progression to these essences is a nice extra layer which is sure to give players something else to work towards. The legendary essences providing a unique visual upgrade is also really exciting. It's not going to give you a large power jump, but you still get to show something off for all your hard work and effort. I think it's a great start when it comes to improving the overall experience in Battle for Azeroth. I would have liked to see systems which affect a class or spec more directly rather than general bonuses, but I think if the Azerite system worked like this from the very beginning of Battle for Azeroth, we would be in an entirely different place at this point in time. It's a shame it took them this long to get to something which is worth investing time into, but at least we can expect good things from here on out. What do you think of the Heart of Azeroth system with all of the information we know right now? Are you excited to hop onto the PTR to help test things out, or are you giving patch 8.2 a pass to do something else? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join the lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.